Welcome to New Beginnings with Karen Delk, where we celebrate the creativity, courage, and wisdom of people creating change. We highlight those who chart new paths, make new life and career choices, and face turning points. We explore lessons that accompany changes, both welcome and unwelcome. New Beginnings covers topics from the worlds of business, education, health, and the arts. Our guests and the stories we share inspire viewers to make positive changes within their own lives and communities. Now here is our host, Karen Delk.
Welcome to New Beginnings with Karen Delk. I am so pleased to have a returning guest, Shari L. Riley, the intuitive healer. Welcome back, Shari.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so happy to be back.
Yes, and you know, those who didn't catch our first show, which was several months ago, I would love for you to explain what an intuitive healer is.
So an intuitive healer is kind of the balance between a spiritual counselor, an intuitive life coach, and an energy body worker. So what I mean by that is we have an energetic field that runs through us, and we have blocks that happen either through this lifetime or past lifetimes that keep us from living our authentic life. And so an intuitive healer helps you to remove those blocks, either mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically, so that you can lead from a place of pure guidance instead of the wounds or the ego.
Okay, and we had previously talked about blocks, but I'd like to spend a little time talking about removals, because blocks are things that keep you stuck, that you want to make a change, but for whatever reason you find yourself not doing it, or doing it up to a point and then retreating back. So how do you help people remove those blocks?
So one of the ways that I describe it is, if you think about a vacuum cleaner that gets a twist tie in the hose, we have sometimes a traumatic issue that happens in our lives that creates this twist tie. It may create a belief that we're not good enough. It may create abandonment issues. It may create feeling unlovable. That's the twist tie. And then that belief attracts like-minded beliefs. So that's the dust around that twist tie. And what happens is when we get too much dust, it bulges, and that causes dis-ease. So my job as an intuitive healer is to remove the twist tie so that energetically things flow smoother and you can let go of those beliefs that are keeping you stuck.
I love that. And when you talked about, I get all of the spiritual, emotional, mental. Tell us a little bit more about how you physically do that.
So when I mean about mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, it's about symptoms within us. So we have physical pain, or we have emotional pieces. We have spiritual blocks that, maybe we can't connect to a higher power because something happened to us within a religious belief. So that's what I mean about the blocks in those arenas. How I work with my clients, my guides gave me a way of honing in on an age where the block happened. So it's a very laser-like direct way to remove that block, remove that twist tie. And that doesn't happen in every session. Sometimes we're just talking about beliefs. Sometimes I get messages from people that have passed, from spirit guides, archangels, and the highest love, light, energy, God, that helps my client resonate with their truth.
Yeah.
It helps validate their truth. Because when we hear something that we know to be true, we know it deep down inside. Maybe we tear up. Maybe we, have a physical reaction like coughing. Maybe we want to shake to let things go. There's a physical reaction that happens when I hit on the truth. And so that also helps my client to understand and start shifting their beliefs that something else is possible.
Yes, I love the whole notion of possibilities and options and choice. You had mentioned the levels of messages. Tell us more about those levels, because I don't know those levels. I've heard the words. I'm not even sure I understand them all, but can you enlighten me and the audience?
Sure. I'm going to start with just like a little story because when I first started realizing that my gift was there, it was, I thought everyone just heard stuff. Like I thought it was me. And when I started my journey on working to be an intuitive healer, I was trained in IET, which is integrated energy therapy. And at the same time that I learned that modality, I was working with a spiritual director who happened to be a nun. Now, I was raised Jewish. So again, religion has nothing really to do with any of this. But this particular woman happened to be a nun. And I went in there and I said, I hear things. Like, I think I'm going crazy. And she said, Moses heard things. And I'm like, well, why me? I'm dreaming dreams. I'm hearing messages. And she said, we really all can do that. We all get dream messages. We all get little nuances that help us believe and hear guidance from a higher power, which I call God. What we have to learn to do is interpret them and to trust where they're coming from. And that is a process. So she allowed me to start exploring this a little bit more. Even in high school, I remember telling friends that I had a dream about them, but it wasn't really a dream, but I didn't really know how to explain it. So I really did have this gift for most of my life. So the way that I hear it, I can't really explain it other than it's within my head and it feels like different frequencies to me. And I can get those, I've learned how to interpret what I'm hearing and then share it with my clients. And that's part of what I do in my intuitive healing certification program is teach others how to hear their messages and interpret them and share them with others.
Yeah, and I want to get to your certification program, but I also just want to understand the levels because you said the highest power. So what are these that you were referring to?
So I believe, and again, this is the way that it was explained to me. I'm not saying that this is the only way. I'm saying that this is the way that I learned to uniquely communicate with my guides. So what I hear is when I hear it at this lower frequency, I know it's someone who has passed. So if I'm getting a message for someone and I hear it down here, and again, it's within my head, so, I just can explain as best as I can. I know it's someone who's passed, and I usually get a letter or a name or something that's unique for that person. Then we have spirit guides, and I believe everybody has a spirit guide, numerous spirit guides. And what they are, they're here to help us kind of walk our journey on Earth. And so there's this, so our guides gives us messages. It may be simple as grab an umbrella today. It might be make a right turn here and there's where the parking space is, right? Like it doesn't have to be, again, I'm not real woo-woo. I know it sometimes sounds woo-woo, but these are things that happen to us on a regular basis. We just haven't learned where they come from.
Or how to listen to them all the time.
Or how to listen to them. Exactly. We have to be quiet enough to listen and then interpret how they speak to us.
Right.
Because every guide had, just like you and I have a unique conversation, someone else might be having a different conversation. Each guide has their own unique way of communicating. Then I believe in archangels. So I believe that God, whatever we want to call this higher power, I use the term God, the label God, has helpers that I call archangels. And I'm not the only one that believes this, but this is just what has resonated with me on my spiritual journey. And so there are also collective conscious messages out there.
Say more about that. Yeah.
So there's a collectiveness that is happening energetically out there that I believe these archangels help with.
Okay.
So Archangel Michael is the archangel of protection. I teach my clients, especially energetic, sensitive people, to put a pink light around them to help them not feel so intensely other people's energy. So that's collective. Archangel Raphael works with the healer in us. And so if you ask, I also teach my clients to ask Archangel Raphael to remove any energy that's not theirs. If you're an empath, if you're highly sensitive empath, you're taking on other people's energy and you sometimes interpret it as your own. So if we ask Archangel Raphael to remove anyone's energy that's not ours, that removes that layer of energy that might be keeping us from being our best self because we're carrying everyone else's energy on our shoulders. You know, empaths are like sponges. They naturally grab everybody's energy. And so we're not taught tools of how to deal with that. And that's part of the work that I do.
I love that. I love that. So let's talk about your certification program. When does it start and what does it cover?
So it is a yearly program, though I am hoping that in 2020 I'll be running it twice. So far it's been, I'm on my third year. It is a program for women who are ready to dig deep into their heart centers and then heal themselves so that they can bring the healing out into the world. We work on 3 modules. One is individual sessions, and that's because so many highly sensitive people have had past life experiences where this gift was looked down upon. People were either hurt by it or have been scared by it. So I work with them individually at first to remove those blocks. Then we move into module 2, and that's building our toolbox. And so we learn how the guides talk to us and the different ways that we can hear the messages, because everyone's unique and everyone has their own way. But there are standard ways or more common ways that highly sensitive people hear from their guides. And then module 3 is all about becoming a heart-based leader. And that part for me is my individual guidance that I got from my guides to bring out into the world. So I'm really excited by that part, because I believe that we have been taught that leaders need to be desensitized. They need to be working on a level where you're always trying to rise to the top, maybe push other people down or get somewhere. The messages I got from my guides regarding a heart-based leader is we work from our core values. We figure out our unique gifts, that soul purpose that I believe God gives us, and then we all rise together. And so this program, near and dear to my heart, is helping us shift the world from maybe challenging each other to being compassionate, from being, someone has to be a leader to we are all leaders in our own way. And how do we manage from that piece of being a sensitive type person? because in the past we've kind of been eaten up by leaders that maybe are supposed to lead from a different type of strength. There's not one way, and I'm not saying one way is better than another. I just don't think that we have been honored as sensitive, highly sensitive people, and getting that information out into the world can really shift us into a more compassionate way of being.
Yeah, what's resonating with me is that, everyone has certain gifts, and it's about balancing the gifts in the world. And a heart-based leader leads. They're not passive. They actually lead, but they lead from, as you said, a center of compassion, and they're able to get things done effectively, and people are still made whole, as opposed to someone who, as you were saying, the climbing part, they lead at all costs, and they're, dead bodies, figuratively, not literally, but figuratively, all around. And yeah, they get results, but, there's not, it's them. It's not others, others aren't rising with them, or fewer people are rising with them. And that's bad.
I believe that that's based on fear, right? Not love.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're trying to lead from a piece where you're fearful that your worth is going to be taken away by other people rising, you're going to lead in a different way than being inclusive and saying, no, use your unique gifts and let's all rise together. You rising next to me does not take away from my own rising.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, I let people, and one of the things that I've learned to work on is the difference between the wounded self, the ego self, and the authentic self. And when I got this message to bring this into the world, my first reaction, honestly, was, why me? Who am I? Why me? Who would want a certification? I'm not the state. I'm not, what does this even mean? And the more I sat with it and meditated on why this, and matter of fact, believe it or not, when I first got this, I called a download for information to bring this forward, someone questioned me about it, like, who am I about it? And how can you just do a certification? I had laryngitis for 2 weeks because I was so scared then to speak my truth because it was shot down by someone I admired. So again, how our body works, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to be quiet for 2 weeks. Well, during that time of being quiet, I got a lot of messages. I talked to my guides during that time. And the messages that I got was, I worked for 20 years to develop even calling myself an intuitive healer. It was difficult. I didn't want other people to have to reinvent the wheel. We need this compassion in the earth now. And so we couldn't wait 20 more years for other people to figure it out. So I didn't feel supported when I was beginning my journey. People weren't open to exploring their intuition back then. And so I wished I had a mentor, and now I get to be the mentor and answer other people's questions because of the 20 years that I've kind of delved into this and figured out a way that worked for me. And I think what we all know is if something works for us, there's probably someone else out there it works for as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how do people get more information about your certification?
Well, you could go onto my website, which is www.sharilriley.com. I'm actually launching a new website soon, so it'll be even more clearer soon. But there is information about the whole class and program on there. There's also a sign up for a newsletter, so you can get some information about that, or reach me at my email, which is guidance@sharilriley.com. So that's that's probably the best way. I'd love to have conversations. If you are any of your viewers out there are a highly sensitive woman who is trying to manage the intensity of her own gifts, that would be a fabulous person that maybe would want to talk about it. If you are, massage therapists, life coaches, Reiki masters, physical therapists, I think there's so many healers trying to figure out how to heal in these modalities that get messages, that feel things, that intuitively know where to place their hands, even though that isn't part of the format they were taught. I want to talk to you guys because they have that gift of being a healer. And again, we're ready to come out, right? We're ready to really kind of say that we have these gifts. There is a purpose. It is not anything as, it's not different. My husband's an amazing contractor. He has certain gifts. Well, these are my gifts. And they have the same value to kind of shift and heal the world.
Yeah. You and I haven't talked in depth, but when you say heal the world, I am right there with you. I don't even think that that's lofty. I just think it's true.
Absolutely.
I think the world is hurting in incredible ways, and it is time to shift energy and to have different kinds of leaders. And businesses have also started to understand that. Not all businesses, but some businesses. Even recently, I read that J.P. Morgan, which is run by Jamie Dimon, he leads some think tank on the side of, running J.P. Morgan, that said leaders and CEOs are now saying that companies need to do more than just support the shareholders. And I don't know exactly what that means, but I think it may be realizing that you can't keep stripping out and, taking apart different aspects so that there's not value and care of individuals. We probably won't ever go back to the company town where everything was taken care of, and I'm not suggesting that that is the way, but we're too far afield, and it's about getting back to a balance that you talked about.
Absolutely. A lot of times I'll talk with clients, whether or not it's about their own personal life or a business life, that the pendulum swings, right? So we start off here, we don't like that, it swings way over here. And most of us need to kind of bring that pendulum down to the center. We needed to build infrastructure. We needed to do a lot of growth in our businesses. I do believe there is a purpose. Like if you were on the front lines fighting, your heart couldn't be that open.
Right.
You have a purpose. You have to fight. But not everyone could be on the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
There are some back here that are nursing. There are some back here that are cooking the food. There are some back here. So everyone can't be on that front line. My program is not for everybody. It's for those who are highly sensitive and feeling like they want to lead from their core values, that they want to bring their unique gifts into the world, that they need to balance the data mind with the intuition, with their gut, with a guidance larger than themselves, so that we can balance that pendulum.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked earlier about the ego balancing with the mother wound. Talk more about that.
So the wounded self and the ego self, right? So when we have wounds, we sometimes, because we feel so scared, insecure, upset, we have to develop a very strong ego that masks those wounds. Otherwise, we're vulnerable, right? So what I help people do is figure out what the wounds are, figure out where the egos is, and allow that authentic self to lead our decisions. What is our truth? What is clear of that? One of the wounded pieces that I think is very important to talk about right now, so that we can balance from the masculine paradigm of leading in a certain way to including a more feminine paradigm, which is leading through our heart, being more secular, using our gut, is healing the mother wound. And when we did not receive what we needed from our mother, and that doesn't even mean someone that had major traumatic issues. I'm talking about just simply you were different personalities even. We have to learn how to mother ourselves. And the mother wound keeps us from doing that. So we either take it out on other women, and this could be men or women. We're not just talking about one sex here. But we have to learn how to mother ourselves, create healthy boundaries, have compassion, so that we can love fully, so our heart can be open fully. And that's a piece that has not really been discussed. My personal opinion is a lot of women who kind of, I'm sure you've heard in your work, where, you know, the at-home mothers are angry at the working mothers, the breastfeeding mothers are angry at the non-breastfeeding mothers, we really have become very judgmental at times of other women. But if we can look at that and say, no, every single one of us is purposeful in their own right, and we can figure out how to love and care for ourselves instead of coming from a mothering that maybe didn't hit all the aspects that you needed to do to grow up, we can then move into a more compassionate, loving world.
I love that. I love that. We only have a minute left, so tell us, what are you going to focus on in 2020? What's your new beginning?
Well, in 2020, I would love to run a second program, which, you know, I'm doing, there's 20 women in each program maximum, so I'd love to do it again, and to open that up. I also am interested in creating the Institute of Intuitive Healing, so that all of the heart-based leaders that I'm breeding out there that are coming out of my program have a place to also share their work and their healing. Because again, right, if we all move into this together, we're changing the world. So I would like to kind of start that institute, so there's a place for other heart-based leaders to share their work.
I think that's great, Shari. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being a guest on New Beginnings with Karen Delk, and I want to have you back after you've started that institute.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Great.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, and thank you for tuning in to New Beginnings with Karen Delk.